Alright, you Earth-realm defenders. It's time to dust off your starter jackets, rip off those tearaways, and blow into your game cartridges. I'm Sam Blandford.
I'm Marty T.
And I'm Sean Kelly. And we wish it was the 90s. Welcome back to another episode of We Wish It Was the 90s, where we dive into all sorts of random 90s stuff that some people care about and our wives don't really. Today's a very special episode. We've been threatening with doing this episode for a really long time, and it's finally here. Our deep dive, and by deep dive I mean very shallow waters of Mortal Kombat, the movie, 1995. Before we get stuck into the movie, I thought I'd fill Marty, Sam, and any listeners that didn't know in on some interesting details. So Mortal Kombat was an arcade game that came out. I think Mortal Kombat 1 might have been about 91-ish.
92.
92. And then before this movie came out, you had Mortal Kombat 2, and I think maybe Mortal Kombat 3 or Mortal Kombat 3 and the movie sort of came out around the same time. What made Mortal Kombat quite different from a lot of other fighting games? Two things really. Famously, the fatalities. After you defeat someone, you can perform a special move that would do a gruesome death. And probably the other thing that's really interesting about the game is they use real actors and sort of took photo images of them in various poses and then combined them to make the moves. And there's fantastic videos on YouTube you can watch of them filming the actors doing this stuff. And probably most famously, Mortal Kombat is the reason that games have a rating. Prior to Mortal Kombat, games didn't have a rating, and because of the blood and gruesomeness, they had to start giving games a rating, and Mortal Kombat got blamed for all sorts of violence. But as we now know in the 21st century, violence can be pretty much single-handedly blamed on the news or the internet, or genetics. And so, it was Midway was the company that made Mortal Kombat, and because of its popularity, it got turned into console games as well. I think my first exposure, we'll save that for the memories. Like wildly popular and just quite different from most other fighting games. Shout out to It Was the 90s number one fan now, Ace Toy, who was very excited for the Mortal Kombat episode. He also requested a Tekken one, but as Marty will confirm, Bob doesn't play Tekken.
Is it too button mashy?
Yeah, there's the fucking skill in that. And just before we go any further, don't be afraid to give us a follow on Insta or Twitter, or join our flailing Facebook group. And if you'd like to give us a like or a review on any of our platforms, we'd greatly appreciate it. Closing in on 2,000 downloads, which isn't bad for nearly a year's work here. Not quite Joe Rogan levels, but we're getting there. So before we talk about the movie, we're just going to discuss a little bit Mortal Kombat 90s memories. I'd say that we could open this up to both the movie and the game. Might start with you, Sam, because you hadn't seen the movie.
No. Just my Mortal Kombat knowledge is pretty thin, to be honest. My memories of Mortal Kombat is of the game. There was a family that lived a few houses down from my parents, the Coetes, and they had Mortal Kombat, and that's my memory of it. Basically, is number of people playing Mortal Kombat in one room. Would it have been on Sega?
It was on Sega. Or Sega.
And Sega, yeah. And I remember seeing like the I think it was kind of like forbidden. I probably shouldn't have been watching it at the age I was, because there was all sorts of hearts being ripped out of bodies and all sorts. So I remembered a lot of the characters. Some I didn't remember. So the ones that you remember your Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Sub-Zero was definitely a one I remembered, and Scorpion. I didn't remember anyone else pretty much. Didn't know who Sonya Blade was. And I've never seen the movie. Didn't even know there was a remake in 2021. But I enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, well, that's good. That is good. Marty, I'll throw to you.
Well, I obviously played the game through the 90s and also watched the movie back then. So to kick off on the game side of things, to steal one of the opening taglines to this very podcast, one of my first memories of Mortal Kombat was literally blowing into the game cartridge of a Sega Master System game cartridge that my cousin had. Got very familiar with the game as he was 2.5 years older, of watching a lot of the game, as it seems to be when you're the younger one. Yeah, distinctly remember the main character set. But I guess one of the big differences, again, for me, was as a true button basher, was the difference of having to use a directional pad, and then I think it was 1 and 2 were the buttons on a Master System. Trying to do the old moves, but yeah, very much a hark back to the old, very original arcade style of fighting games rather. For the movie, I think the main memory was I first watched it. I think it might have been on telly, but then eventually getting a VHS, and distinctly remember the black and white static coming across the screen at various different parts of the movie. But as a young kid, I think would have been 7 or 8, 9 or so when the movie came out. Very much bought into the hype. Loved the game. Loved playing the game. And was probably blinded by the quality of the movie, or blinded by the game when considering the quality of the movie. Because I thought it was a hell of a lot better when I watched it compared to when I went back and watched it a second time or so, sort of in the mid 2000s. But yeah, we'll get into a little bit more of that later on.
I seem to have a memory of you and me watching it around 2011 during that that South Africa indoor test series. We were staying up at Silverstream and we watched it on a laptop, probably a torrented version.
The Pirate Bay version. Yeah. I think that I thought it might have been you who I watched it with for the second time around, but yeah, as a kid, I was right into it.
So my memories are so my parents' work, next to where my parents worked, was like a little mini arcade, and just there were two games, arcade games that generated massive crowds: Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat 2. And so I would get in at times when no one was there, because obviously my parents worked, 9 to 5 sort of hours, and you wouldn't have a big crowd of bros playing at 9 a.m. So I'd go in and literally spend all my money, because I was no good, trying to get through. And I absolutely reveled and picked up on all the little bits and pieces, and I was quite young, but watching other people play, and you'd get into the Forbidden Forest, and you'd see Reptile pop out from behind a tree, and all these sorts of little cool things that went with the game. So there was that part, and then when it came on console, I was straight in. So I'd go and get it out. I never owned it, but I'd get it out from United Video in Lower Hutt, and I distinctly remember clocking Mortal Kombat 1 with Scorpion, basically spearing my way to the top, and then getting to Goro, who was the second to last boss, and the spear wouldn't work on him. It was too much of a unit, and so basically jumping in straight into a crouch, throwing an uppercut, and then jumping out, and grinding through Goro, and then fortunately for me, Shang Tsung was vulnerable to the spear, so he wasn't too much of an issue.
So Scorpion was your go-to.
Still is, Marty?
Still, could have picked that one a while away.
What about you, Marty?
I varied, but I think my go-to was mainly Raiden, using the lightning, trying to figure that out, and just the voice effects when he used the lightning.
Marty loves it.
Love it. Yeah.
Do you have a go-to, Sammy?
Nah, I think I like Sub-Zero.
He always felt to me to be the most popular, but I think nowadays it's probably Scorpion. But just to get back to the memory, so the movie was coming out and I was all in. I went and saw it at Hoyt's, a PG-13 rating, which you might have noticed when watching the movie. You don't actually see any human characters die. You see their souls get sucked out, but you don't see them die.
Like X-Men.
Just like, kind of like when X-Men characters get destroyed. But yeah, I was all in, and probably my greatest memory was probably must have been at least a year after release, but maybe even later, because Mortal Kombat Annihilation might have been part of this. But birthday party sleepovers, where we would all sleep in the lounge, watch Mortal Kombat 95 on VHS, and then play around the world Mortal Kombat until people started falling asleep. And I guess a little bit of background for Sammy. Marty knows this, but I think I've played nearly every Mortal Kombat game.
Are there lots?
So there's 11 in the main combat series, like the one-on-one fighting series.
Wow.
And then there's, I think, 3 spin-offs, which I haven't I've only played one of the spin-offs. There's a 2-player side-scrolling spin-off called Shaolin Monks, where you are Liu Kang and Kung Lao. There's a Sub-Zero spin-off that I haven't played, but I've seen bits, doesn't look great. And then there's a Special Forces spin-off revolving around Jax, which looks absolutely awful. Yeah, I think so. I played 1, 2, 3, and then I dropped off a bit as I grew up out of those types of things. Didn't play 4, but then I got back in when it was on PlayStation 3. There was Mortal Kombat Deception, there was Mortal Kombat Armageddon, and there was Mortal Kombat 9, which was like a reboot sort of time travel gaff. And then Mortal Kombat 10 and Mortal Kombat 11.
Wow.
Which I've played those most recent 3 with Marty a few times, but he gets a bit frustrated because
he's a butter masher.
Bob's a scumbag. Bob's a scumbag. Mortal Kombat scumbag. But yeah, so keen to hear people's thoughts on, and keen to hear yours first, Sam, as a first. No, maybe we'll go to you last, actually, because you're a first-time viewer. Marty, doing your rewatch this afternoon. What's your thoughts on returning to Mortal Kombat 95?
Yeah, it was. There were a lot of like real key timestamps that they had in there. I think the set design was one. I was thinking to myself, be good if Weta Workshop could get involved, and with the new movie that they did bring out, I thought they did a lot better in that respect. Yeah, so that's probably the special effects was the big difference for me. Goro, needed a little bit of very lethargic Goro. His face, yeah,
Did you not revel in his sort of like open fist wax?
yeah. Yeah, well, because I mean, and when you play him in the game, he's like for the untrained person, or the first few times you try and play with him, he's blooming hard, and but you try and fight against him in the arcade style, and he's so hard to beat, as Bob alluded to, unless you do the old scumbag jump and down punch followed by an uppercut.
And because you can't even like sit still and wait for him to come close for an uppercut, because he'll just jump out of the screen and land on you.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Hold up and down.
Yeah, it was all special effects. Was probably the weird thing, like the way that Kano's mask fits on his face. Yeah, and then the other one was in I think it was the end fight scene when Sonya Blade was tied up in chains or whatever, and she'd gone from wearing her cop gears, or special forces kit, into like a short skirt, with her hair all like permed out, like she was right out of Saved by the Bell or something like that. That kind of hairstyle going on. What do they used to call that? Like crimping your hair or whatever.
Yeah, she goes from like quite a badass character to the damsel in distress way too quickly for me.
Yeah, real immediately. But the style of hair, was crack up as to that's what ticked the boxes in those days for a lot of people.
Clearly ticked Shang Tsung's box.
Maybe he had some of his. Maybe he's got hairdressers in Outworld, like a makeup team or something like that. And it seems like the kind of guy who'd like to put on a bit of presentation or throw a good party.
Absolutely.
What about your points, Bob?
Yeah, well, look, I've seen this movie so many times, and I think I might have talked about this on previous pods, but when you revisit things from your childhood that you're really fond of, you view them through a lens of nostalgia that's hard to look past. I remember watching some things you can maybe be a little bit more agnostic about. Like I watched Top Gun in 2015 in London, and me and Sheepdog talked it up to the rest of the flat like this is Tom Cruise's peak performance, and halfway through we looked at each other and like, is this boring?
That's because it's Tom Cruise. He sucks.
The graphics are quite jarring, but in my case, when I know that reptile looks like something from the Spawn movie, and I can see right past it. It doesn't bother me. So I had a great time. I really, really enjoy. Probably the biggest difference this time was, I guess, trying to look at it through a critical lens and reveling even more in how 90s action movie it is. That's the opening scene with Sonya, where they go into the club to find Kano, and it's like 90s death metal and, just whatever that crowd is. It's, it's the 90th thing you'll ever see.
And her shooting the gun and smashing the glass just didn't interrupt the rave, apparently.
Hell of a rave. And like the soundtrack is, you kind of expect it to maybe be more of an Asian flavor, but it's more 90s trance and house than anything else. But yeah, it all just works really well and the other thing that's super 90s about it, but I just love, is it's almost not dialogue. It's just a series of one-liners. It's like, I don't know if you guys have watched The Rock recently with Nick Cage and Sean Connery, but it's like that. It's just like one-liner after another, and you're just like, I'm here for this. Yes, I had a great time. Even watching the last fight on 1.5 speed. The one thing that I did notice, and I wonder if I am impacted by, I've done some research. The fight choreography is not great.
Oh, here we go. Let me get into it.
Right, you're up, Sam.
I had a great time. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I've got a few notes on characters, but I might save that for the character draft. Looking forward for Marty to lose that for his first one. But
case in point, Marty messaged me and said, "Yeah, but what's the draft?" I said, "Oh, it's a snake draft." Then when I rang him this afternoon, he said, "Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused about the draft." Sorry, Marty. It took me 5 pods to work out a snake draft.
We'll see how we go on first time.
The just segueing from what you said, Bob, I think they missed a trick with their casting of a couple of characters. Like, I don't think, like, Johnny Cage was great, but I think someone who is a good martial artist and not a very good actor would have done just as good. Same with Sonya. Like, they were just so bad in the fight scenes that it's like comically really great because they're awful. But like Liu Kang is like pretty good. And
Can I jump in on those 3 just for a second? So, Veronica Vaughn.
Is that who's
Bridget
Veronica
Wilson.
Vaughn? Oh, Sampras.
Yes.
Pete Sampras' wife.
Yes. She's a very late addition to the cast because Cameron Diaz got injured.
Really?
I was going to say she would be a good recast.
Yeah. She got injured, and so Bridget Wilson, Sampras, Veronica Vaughn came in late, and also insisted on doing all her own stunts, despite not having done a lot of the training required.
He's awful.
I think you'll also notice that she only has like 3 fight scenes,
and they're all horrific.
Yeah. Lyndon Ashby. Yeah, I didn't even. You're right. His fighting's not great. He's Johnny Cage.
He's awful.
Just, regardless, revel in him.
Yeah.
Robin Shu was, but before this was like a well-regarded Hong Kong stuntman. And yeah, his fight choreography's pretty good.
Yeah, especially that last fight is fantastic.
With Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa.
Yeah, the unintentional comedy is kind of, and comedy is off the charts. The CGI, which Marty alluded to, lends to some, like, I was laughing out loud a few times at some of the CGI. I don't know whether it would have been groundbreaking at the time, but shit, it was good. Especially the, was it Scorpion who had the thing that came out of its hand?
Yeah. It's the most baffling thing in the movie because Scorpion doesn't even have a thing that comes out of his hand. He just throws a spear. So they've made that for the movie for some reason. It
was awful. And Marty talked about Kano or whatever his name is. That just looked weird. Like his skin was like folded over the eyes parts. I was a bit... I really enjoyed I have no idea about the movies, but the fact that they worked in the fatality and finish him into the movie, just from an arcade perspective. I had a great time. There were some characters so forgive me if I'm wrong, but all the main characters, the ones that are pretty much the only speaking roles, were playable characters in the game.
So it's kind of based on Mortal Kombat 1, which I think the only missing character, I might look it up to make sure I'm not wrong.
Katana?
So Katana's Mortal Kombat 2.
Yeah, I didn't think she was playable. But Kano, Goro, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden, Johnny Cage,
Yeah.
Sonya Blade, Liu Kang, and Shang Tsung.
Yeah, so Goro's your first boss, and then Shang Tsung's your main boss.
Were they
Yeah.
playable in all of the games, those two?
I don't think Shang Tsung wasn't playable until Mortal Kombat 3.
Yeah.
And Goro's not even in it. Doesn't come back till Mortal Kombat 4.
Nutty.
Um,
I'll talk about Johnny Cage when we get to the character draft. Is that what we're up to next?
Nearly there. I had a few other. I just had some notes of saying what I thought was bad and what I thought was good. So I'll start with bad. A complete misuse of the ninjas. Like Scorpion and Sub-Zero are the pinnacle of the game, and Liu Kang. But I like how Liu Kang is the main character. They're just in it to be in it, you know. In the actual game storyline, Scorpion enters the tournament because he wants to kill Sub-Zero. There's a
I
whole
think Shang
mess.
Tsung like alludes to it briefly. Ace is like something the mortal enemies usually, but under my power. Yeah, whatever he goes on to say from there.
Yeah,
Who's the lizard? What's the lizard's name?
Reptile.
Is Reptile playable?
So Reptile is a secret character you can only fight against by it's something weird, like you. There's the level, the hidden forest, and he's like hiding behind the trees, and it's like if you might even be Mortal Kombat 2, but if you defeat someone flawless victory on that stage, then he'll appear and you have to fight him as well. Yeah. Then he becomes a main character as the game goes on.
What else was bad, Bob?
I didn't think about it when I was a kid, but I really hated how creepy Shang Tsung was towards Sonya.
Very woke of you.
The whole reptile thing was weird. I thought Sub-Zero's death was a bit shit.
What was with I thought they would the fights seemed to just be like really spontaneous. Like I thought the idea of it would be like, okay, you're in this arena and you're going to fight this, whereas like the Sub-Zero one looked like it just happened, and same with the Scorpion Johnny battle just like seemed like it just appeared and happened. I thought they would have more of those guys cheering the baddies on.
The guys that look at each other every second scene and go, "Yes, Goro!" Yeah. I mean, there are different battle arenas, but yeah, it seemed a bit odd, and it feels like I don't. Yeah, obviously it's off screen, but Johnny Cage, your next fight is going to be against Scorpion in the forest. And it's like, why aren't his mates watching? Then when Scorpion teleports him to the spiderweb scaffolding arena, how did he get out of there? So I must say, absolutely love when he beats Scorpion and he throws down that little signed "To my greatest fan, Johnny Cage." The use of the term flawless victory in the movie is completely misplaced because a flawless victory means no one lands a punch. Sorry, that's and that gets used quite a few times. And obviously we've touched on the CGI, but CGI in particular of the Emperor's castle or whatever that is like, my God, what is that? Things that I thought were really good. Shang Tsung's island in general was mint. I absolutely love Kano. I reckon Goro is amazing. Like a completely animatronic puppet man thing. It looks. I'm glad they went with that and not CGI.
Cost over $1 million to make.
I hope someone's still got it. Christopher Lambert, or Lambert, as I like to call him, his performance is rated. Just exceptional. Liu Kang's mullet, amazing.
So good.
And when Liu Kang gives Reptile the bicycle kick, and when Liu Kang gives Shang Tsung the fireball, good highlights.
I still remember the first time managing to be able to actually pull those moves off in the game, which was, I think it might have even been after I actually saw the movie. And yeah, as soon as being able to pull off the bicycle kick was wild.
The bicycle kick is like maybe one of the most famous fighting game moves out there, I reckon. It's got to be up there.
Yeah,
You know what we're talking about, Sammy?
Yeah, it was real bizarre to watch.
Is he's flying?
Yeah. Oh.
All right. Shall we draft?
Just before, I had a couple extra points, like as far as plot holes were concerned, and you boys love being sportsmen yourselves, love picking squads and talking about, like selection processes and picking teams and whatnot. And this might have a little bit to do with the draft, but looking at the likes of who was going to represent Earthrealm, Liu Kang makes sense, right? He was was it the Temple of Light where all the monks are based, and he was their head honcho, went away and did his OE in America, although apparently he watched too much television.
I did love that bit.
But
Too much television.
Yeah, his selection makes sense. But then you've got Sonya Blade, who is a military cop of fairly slight build and apparently quite hard-headed. And then you've got Johnny Cage, who is an actor and martial arts movies, who's got a complex around his ability to actually perform those moves in real life and not against a stunt crew. Who's again of slight build. If you're defending Earthrealm from final defeat in Mortal Kombat, what's Raiden up to when he's picking his squad?
Look,
If they had the same level of scrutiny on New Zealand Talkback Radio as what the All Black squads might have, I think there would have been a hell of a lot of holes to be picked.
Oh, bloody Raiden. Let's get to him in the character. Well, he might not get... I hope I'm not going to be drafting him. Let's just put it that way.
And my one other plot hole is just more of a side note. I love the boat. The boat was mint. But as the boat was pulling into the harbour, how did it manage to get past customs with the state of its, sails? Can just imagine... What's that show in Australia called? As a Border Patrol, where they've got the customs people and they'll follow around. You can just imagine the episode where Lily and her handler Simon are off to inspect a boat that's just pulled into the harbour on its way to from Hong Kong. Lily has come across a whole arsenal of weapons underneath the first floor, and Simon's having a question on the captain of the ship.
Topical. Why did no one question that cruiser that came into Wellington on the weekend?
I don't know. Maybe customs was different back then. Obviously, it was pre-2011, 9/11. Sorry.
Was it Hong? It was Hong Kong, eh?
Was it leaving from Hong Kong? Is that what it was?
I think it was, because Johnny's former master, that was actually Shang Tsung, gave him said, be on Pier 30, Hong Kong, blah, 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 at this time. I want to come back to what you said about Johnny. I think it's implied with that conversation with the master, who's actually Shang Tsung, that he is also a martial artist. He has, but yeah, agreed. Or even if you were picking a action martial arts star, you might go like, well, it's the 90s. Let's go, I don't know, Arnie.
Arnie, yeah, like do you maybe go sports and like get Mike Tyson? That's peak Mike Tyson at that time, isn't it? Really, mid-90s.
I thought you were about to
Jackson.
say Van Damme, and an interesting fact: Van Damme turned down the role of Johnny Cage to be in the Street Fighter movie.
Wow.
And then picked up Guile in Street Fighter.
And he also apparently kicked up a bit of a fuss because Johnny Cage is actually based on Van Damme. Yeah. It's another thing that's waved away in dialogue when Raiden says on Marty's favourite boat, I've looked into their souls and they can't win. So there's obviously something about these three. I guess.
Yeah. Well, even when Liu Kang went back to the Temple of Light, I think was it Raiden was talking to the old man, and he when Liu Kang storms off and said, I think the old guy says, "I hope he's ready," and Raiden says something like, "But there is no one else." Was Raiden just winging it?
Yeah, the other thing that Raiden says is something like, "There's no time." It's like, these tournaments every 50 years or 100 years. Like,
you need to do Raiden's voice.
it's really hard. He puts on that weird gravelly.
There's no time.
I do love it when Raiden goes, ha ha ha. Sorry.
Should we do this draft?
Yeah.
Are we going to pull names out of a hat, or?
Yeah, I've got bits of paper here.
So for the listeners who are listening to this for the first time, because they're Mortal Kombat fanatics, we like to do a snake draft. And just to refresh Marty's memory, whoever goes first gets first pick and last pick, second pick and second to last pick, third pick and fourth pick. I want to make something. Yes, Sam.
I've got about 9 characters, maybe 10 characters. I think we just do 2 rounds, so 6 characters get picked. Because some of the characters that I've got written down didn't say anything the entire movie. So if you have the first pick, you get the 6th pick. Second pick gets 5th, and third goes back to back and gets 3rd and 4th pick. Does that make sense, Marty?
Sure does.
Just want to make something else clear before we start the pick. We've got to pick based on the movie.
Definitely.
I know who I'd pick if I was about to beat you guys on PlayStation.
All right. The first name, just draw it out of a hat here, is Sean Bob.
Yes.
First pick.
First and last.
First and last. Second pick. Myself. So Marty, you have 3rd and 4th pick, which I was kind of hoping. I was kind of hoping for 3rd and 4th pick, but Sean, take it away.
Right. I'm just going to bring up a little character list so I don't. Yeah, I've thought about this enough. I know who my first pick is. He's the first Earthrealm defender to work out what this tournament's all about. Comes across as egotistical, maybe a little bit self-indulgent, but what people always forget, he's also good looking. I'm picking Johnny Cage. I just think, I enjoy his banter. He's got the best one-liners. I think for the good guys, I think he puts on the best performance as an actor of the good guys.
Big call.
I think I really, I do really like that part where he decides he's worked out a way that he thinks he can beat Goro, so he challenges him because he doesn't want to see anyone else die. But it's not just because he like stupidly thinks he can win. He's actually got a plan. And of the three, the only three people who have enough whatever in their soul to win this thing, he works it out first. I got a lot of respect for that.
They really tried hard to make him like he's the comic relief, basically. The Chandler Bing, if you will. He's just a walking one-liner. Every single thing is one line.
90% of my favourite quotes are by him.
Yeah, he, like when Sonya says, "I smell something bullshit," and it cuts to him and he's doing like this mimicking face.
I love
it. Yeah, I didn't like him at the start, but I came to like him as it went on.
He also he chucks in his signature nut punch as well in the movie as well, which still was good.
I love the ball breaker.
The best thing about his aviators are mint.
Those are $500 sunglasses, asshole. Damn it! I used one of my quotes.
All right. Second pick. I'm going to go with the person who's first on my list, and it is quite clearly the number one pick you should have taken is Liu Kang. I think, obviously, I mentioned it earlier, he's clearly the best martial artist. His mullet is legendary. The final fight scene is awesome. Really, really impressive. And I think I quite like his little story. We get a little bit more backstory of his than we do of Johnny and Sonya. It's a little bit more fleshed out. And he's got a little bit of humour to him too, especially when they're getting on the boat and he takes Johnny's suitcase and drops it in the water.
He's got some good Johnny mug-offs throughout.
Yeah, I think those two are quite a good duo. And that says a little bit about Johnny too. So yeah, that's my my number one pick, Liu Kang.
And he caught the eye of Princess Katana.
Yes, this is true.
Lucky man.
She's 1,000 years old.
Take it. My first pick. This one was pretty easy. He was probably going to be my number one. I tossed up between him and Cage. But this guy has great comic relief. I love a villain. Love the fact that, he added a little bit of diversity with the supposed Australian accent that was in the movie. Had Sonya Blade chasing after him the whole movie and still was taunting her right to the very end. I would have loved to have seen, though, in the movie, his signature move from the game, which is the laser that comes out of his eye. Unfortunately, wasn't to be. But my first pick is Kano.
Bastard.
That's a great pick.
I thought he was going to drop to me. So it's funny you mentioned he's supposed to have an Australian accent because this is like an ongoing thing with what's the guy's name from X-Men, Bob? Pyro. It's definitely a British accent.
Actor is British.
Yeah. Is Kano supposed to? What's Kano's nationality supposed to be, Bob?
This is good stuff. So, before the movie, he's American.
Oh, really?
Post movie, he's Australian.
Madness.
People responded so well to Kano in the movie. They're like, "Fuck it, all right, he's Australian."
It's just clearly a British accent.
Some of his I don't know if you know this, Sam, but in the later games, as well as fatalities, they have other things like brutalities, babalities, where someone gets turned into a baby, and friendships. And a lot of Kano
as well.
where you turn into an animal. And Kano's most common friendship is cooking some shrimp on the barbie.
Oh, fucking move on. I would have picked. I was hoping Kano dropped. To me, what do you got next, Marto? Number 4.
Oh yeah, back to back. The next one was a wee bit harder, but I've decided to go with another villain. He has my favourite quote of the movie of all, which is right near the very start.
Fuck you, Marty.
Sorry, I had to do it. Your brother's soul is mine. Definitely Shang Tsung has a mean island. That boat that he's rocking, yeah, great character throughout.
Gotta say, like, a lot of movies struggle with good villains, but Shang Tsung is incredible.
So good. He was a toss-up for me at
next. 2. You're up, Sammy.
I was really hoping that either of those two would have dropped to me at 5. Well, Sonya's not getting picked. Let me tell you that. I hate Raiden, so I've got to go with my next one's Master Boyd is the other one. So let's. I'm going to go with Goro as my next pick. Probably not. He's probably the 3rd best villain on the show. But as you mentioned before, the animatronic suit, he looks like E.T. Just his face looks like E.T.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was the color of the suit, but the fact that it required over a dozen puppeteers to operate Goro lends me to picking him. His fight with I don't know if it's with Johnny Cage. No, the one that he fights before and he like beats the guy to death.
The boxer or whatever he is.
That is just fantastically awful. It's like I was watching it in 1.25 speed, and it was so slow. All his punches, like it wasn't even slow motion. Yeah, so Goro is my 5th pick.
Also quite like the yarn between Kano and Goro.
Yeah, they don't really like each other, eh?
Because Goro's a Shokan prince. You know, like he's a big deal. And in the lore, he defeats the great Kung Lao, who is Liu Kang's descendant. Starts the run for Outworld. So he's undefeated in 9 Mortal Kombats.
Yeah.
Shit.
Who are you taking, Bob? I know who you're going to take.
I'm definitely going to take Christopher Lambert, Lord Raiden.
Yeah.
I definitely feel everyone's vibe of what's Raiden up to, but his devil may care attitude to this whole thing, and I almost feel like the way he's talking to them is deliberate because he knows how he's going to get the best out of them. And like, you know, when he gives the speech to to Johnny and then Sonya about what they can't overcome, and then just walks off knowing that Lou will come over and be like, why didn't you give me any advice? You know, everything he's doing is deliberate.
He's a fuckwit.
Would he also have been like the head honcho repping Earthrealm for the first 9 bites at the cherry?
I believe so.
He's done to keep that gig.
They could have given it to his brother Fujin.
Raiden out.
Yeah. Yeah, he'd struggle in the English Premier League, wouldn't he?
The bit at the end, I pissed myself, where it's him, Johnny, and Lou, and they've just taken Sonya away. And he's like, there is one final rule he forgot to mention. And then Lou's like, she has to accept the challenge. And then he's like, I have nothing left to teach you, Liu Kang. It's like, oh, This guy is a fucking loser. He should. It seems like he should be of Asian descent.
He is. Yeah.
What?
Although early games, he's not even played by an Asian. But certainly, even in the modern games, he's not Asian, actually. In the modern movie, he is. He's always just come across as some sort of wise old white guy. You know? Like a great American president.
From memory, I think Raiden is actually the god of lightning in Japanese mythology as a whole. Yeah, like throughout their whole culture. So yeah, I think it's safe to say he probably should have been Japanese.
Yeah, a few plot holes /
Whitewashing's all good in the 90s, apparently.
I've not got many best bits left to talk about.
I've got some facts. So Johnny Cage, the role of Johnny Cage was offered to Brandon Lee before he passed away.
I think I remember that one, yeah.
I think we mentioned Cameron D was going to be in it. You mentioned the $1 million Goro thing. Robin Shu, who plays Liu Kang, broke his ribs in one of the fight scenes and just carried on filming.
He's your number one pick, ladies and gentlemen.
What else is interesting? Oh, yes, this is real interesting. The director of Johnny's movie is sorry, take it back a step. The opening scene of Johnny fighting those guys. I'm all in on that before I realise it's a movie scene.
This is where you fall down.
Yeah. But after that, the director, who's trying to get things going and clearly looks like Spielberg, was supposed to be Spielberg but couldn't do it because of scheduling conflicts.
Oh,
Spielberg, big fan of the game, apparently.
I did like the quote he said, I'll be back directing Traffic, Johnny. Please, Johnny.
Christopher Lambert did all of the French dubs for the film.
Who's that? Is that Raiden?
Christopher Lambert. And Raiden was supposed to be, not supposed to be, but Sean Connery turned down the role of Raiden.
Fuck. And we got that guy.
I like Christopher Lambert. He's good in Highlander.
He's bad in this.
Can imagine Sean Connery though in there, like things would move a lot slower with him in there, wouldn't it?
What a weird choice that would be.
Hello, Sonya Blade.
I have looked into their souls.
Shit, yeah.
But Christopher Lambert was so on board to do this, he paid for his own flights and accommodation to film the movie.
No way.
Yeah.
What a wiener.
Anything else? Directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who's sort of known for these sort of 90s type films. He's got some pretty good movies.
The one part I really liked, which really changed my tune on Johnny Cage, was the 10 bags gag, where he was walking off the boat with all those bags and just fell face first into the water. So that was real good.
Something we haven't really touched on, obviously, the theme song is one of the most relentless musical tunes that was ever made. Just non-stop.
What's it called?
Techno Syndrome.
Yeah, look it up on Spotify, team. It's friggin' great.
And when it was actually in the movie, I was right there, like, yes, let's go. Here we go.
The album actually went platinum. The other thing, I really like the Johnny Cage music. So you hear it in that opening scene. that comes out a few other times throughout the movie. I think that's quite a good thing. Anything else that I wrote down?
Should we try and... Oh, yeah, carry on.
This is the last thing. It's it might have changed now with the Sonic movies, but most commercially successful video game to movie ever at the time, at least.
Wow. Sonic beat it.
That Sonic movie's real popular.
Weird.
Good for the kids.
Sure. Are we going to try and recast it? Can we recast this entire cast?
It's too hard.
I think the entire cast would be difficult, yeah.
Any thoughts, though?
Marty made a good point to me off air. We've been touched upon. A lot of these characters should be Asian. So, I personally don't have a great knowledge of great modern Asian actors, but because if I was remaking this movie now, I would try and make Sub-Zero and Scorpion's storyline part of the film. They both have to be Asian. But if we just recast those core characters, Johnny, Lou, Sonya, Raiden, Shang Tsung, and Goro. I mean, I know who I'm casting as Goro.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
E.T.
Surely The Rock. He won't do it.
Interesting that you said The Rock.
Scorpion King.
Yeah, funnily enough, my suggestion was The Big Show. There was very much a WWE flavour going on there.
I like that.
There's no way The Rock would do it because he won't play a character that loses. Then I thought, sticking with that theme, what's his name? I can picture him.
Playing Goro.
Yeah.
A couple of ones that there's actually only one, and I think it's only because I thought of this person when I saw Johnny Cage, and maybe that his name was Johnny, and I don't even know the characters that I don't think I know the real actor's name, but Johnny Drama from Entourage. Who's that on? What's that actor's name?
Isn't that it's what's his name's brother?
Yeah.
Dylan. Dylan?
Yeah, Kevin Dillon.
That's it.
Dylan's brother.
He's probably a bit old for it now. Which kind of defeats the purpose of recasting. But that's all I could think about when I was watching Johnny Cage was Johnny Drama from Entourage.
The person I was thinking about for Goro was Batista.
Ah, yeah, not a bad option. Drax isn't too dissimilar in look. Be interesting to see how they can work in the third and fourth arms.
It's a cop out, but for Liu Kang, guy Simu Liu, who plays Shang-Chi in the Marvel movies, obviously good martial artist, good sort of Hollywood Asian A-lister now. But to be fair, I'd kind of prefer if they were going to cast a new Liu Kang to pick someone who's actually a famous actor in Asia and make Mortal Kombat their Hollywood breakout. Which I guess it was a little bit for Robin Shou, although he didn't really break out. I think he might be in a Lethal Weapon or something of that caliber.
What about Sonya Blade? Because we can only go up from what we got.
Oh, that's so rough. Again, a Marvel actress who loves to kick ass, like a Brie Larson would go quite well there, or
what about Sophie Turner?
I don't think Sophie Turner can act.
Is it Sansa Stark?
Yeah.
And Jean Grey?
What about Arya Stark? Maisie
Yeah.
Williams.
She can act.
I don't know. I actually thought the movie did a really good job of looking like the actors that they had picked for the arcade game.
Ooh.
Apart from Raiden.
Johnny a little bit. You'd expect, like more of a Van Damme type, like
He's a bit of a
ripped.
wiener.
Yeah. Lyndon Ashby didn't have the. He wasn't ripped.
Well, speaking of, one of the guys I thought of for Cage, because I was just thinking, would you want them way more jacked?
I think
And
a
for
little bit more.
Johnny, I thought another Johnny. What about Cena? Is he too jacked for a Cage?
Cena would be a good Cage.
Is this a wrestling podcast?
And it's getting that way, isn't it?
Or Liam or / Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
I actually thought of Chris Hemsworth might not be a bad shout as Kano.
Well, he's an Aussie.
Or the other one I thought for Kano might be Eric Banner. Bit washed up, bit aggressive, but still got that Aussie accent.
Eric Banner is perfect.
Yeah, and plays a good disgruntled character, Eric Banner.
He's got good comedic chops as well. People don't really, how good is he in the Castle?
So good.
Yeah. Excellent.
That's made in the 90s, isn't it, The Castle?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Shang Tsung's really hard to cast.
Yeah,
very hard to cast. That is it Liu Kang's grandfather at the Temple of Light, or is he just like the head monk? What's that guy?
That's his grandfather.
It is his grandfather. I thought of that old fella from Squid Game.
Oh yeah, very good.
He'd be a good cameo. A lot of people pointing at the screen going, "Oh, yeah, I know him." Although I was wondering whether or not that's casting all people of Asian descent under one. Yeah.
The only other one I thought was.
Sorry, you go, Sam.
The only other one I thought was Katana. Megan Fox.
I was thinking Gal Gadot.
Don't love Megan Fox as an actress, but she doesn't say much Katana.
No. She'd probably think she's more of the Sonya Blade type.
Yeah, nice. Unlucky, mate.
Megan Fox mightn't make a bad Melina. I know Melina's not in this version of the movie, but that sort of sassy kind of rough, tough mold.
Well, yeah. Do you know who Melina is, Sam?
Absolutely no idea.
She's a hybrid clone of Katana that the Emperor makes to take her place.
I like Katana.
Everyone likes Katana.
I like Melina until she takes her mask off.
Oh, yeah.
You got teeth, mate.
But like Venom, eh?
Very much. Well, that's a half-hearted, poor effort at a recast. I just wanted to any more quotes that people really, really like.
No, I pretty much said all my everything. Like Johnny Cage had lots of one-liners, but I didn't write many of them down because it seemed like it was just a broken record.
Let me roll out a couple.
Fantastic.
Thank God I didn't ask him to park the car. I love there's a couple of good exchanges between him and Sonya. Oh, you're at it. Why don't you call my agent? Do I look like your secretary? Where the hell are we? Do I look like your travel agent? When Kano comes out to fight Sonya. Hello, baby. Did you miss me? And then when Sonya goes, "You are the most egotistical, self-deluded person I've ever met." Yeah? Well, you forgot good looking. And then when they get
sounds
to
like a
Outworld,
British accent to me.
And then when they get to Outworld, so this is Outworld. I can see why they'd want a change of scenery. And then and that final battle where Luke goes, all those souls, and you still don't have one of your own. I pity you, sorcerer. And Shang Tsung goes, save your pity for the weak.
Shang Tsung's mint.
That's all I got.
It's not so much a quote, but a great effect when it comes to one character's speech was the extra bass and echo for Raiden to make him sound like godly. Although one of the exchanges that he has with Shang Tsung, he kind of lets out that he can be a bit of a sook. I think they're on the boat and on their way to Outworld, and Shang Tsung says something along the lines of, an Outworld where your powers will be diminished as it's out of your realm. And Raiden rather sarkily snaps back, my dominions are well known to me, sorcerer. I know where I'm powerful. Like a little sooky laugh. Getting under his skirt.
Very good. Well, if that's us, we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm willing to punish Sam with Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but if this gets over 50 downloads, we'll do it.
Yeah, I'll be keen. You know, I only trust one person in this world, Sean. And you're talking to him.
Thanks, mate.
You're talking about Craig.